Hey guys, I'm about to make a lot of swelled up bald-headed guys in tight t-shirts with a lot of flaming skull tattoos angry. Because when it comes to a pistol for the end of the world, shit hit the fan, Tiawaki, I prefer a revolver. Now, before you get good and angry at me, hear me out. I know what the experts are gonna say. Uh, the revolver is no more inherently reliable than the semi-automatic, and they are correct. The action on a revolver is no more inherently reliable than the action on the semi-automatic. I concede that from the get-go. So if that's your point, hear me out, because I think you're missing a lot when all you talk about is the functioning of the pistol, because there's no denying that the modern semi-automatic pistol in and of itself is a very reliable quality mechanism with fewer moving parts and even fewer springs than a revolver. So you would think inherently the semi-automatic would be more reliable. And it may be if all as you were talking about was the action of the weapon. Revolvers have to have their timing correct. There's some things that can go wrong with the cartridges getting in the way of the cylinder rotating and whatnot. There's also some inefficiencies inherent in a revolver. There's a gap between the cylinder and the barrel, and you lose some of the chamber pressure out of that gap as the bullet passes through it. So that the same bullet in a semi-automatic would be more powerful than that same bullet in a revolver. So there's some problems with the revolver. Where I disagree with the SEAL Team 6, the wannabe SEAL Team 6, actually SEAL Team 6 should have semi-automatics. We're not talking about SEAL Team 6. We're talking about the average guy in shit hit the fan. What they forget in all this debate is what a sidearm is for. A sidearm is not your main tactical weapon. Your sidearm is your fallback to weapon. But we'll come back to that in just a second. What's the advantage of the revolver over the semi-automatic? The semi-automatic relies on magazines, number one. And magazines are the great Achilles heel of the semi-automatic weapon. Every semi-automatic weapon, if it's going to have a problem, 9 times out of 10, that problem's going to be in the magazine. It could be the best designed weapon in the world, but if you got hold of a cheap or just a flawed magazine, or just an old magazine, if you keep those things loaded up, those springs aren't very strong. They wear out over time. So if you've got it loaded out to the max and set in the closet and you pull it out 5, 10, 15 years down the road, there's a real good chance that magazine's not going to work correctly anymore. It's not going to feed correctly. Also, magazines are designed to be expendable. They're designed to be thrown away. When they first came up with the whole idea of a magazine, the thought was that you would, in a tactical situation, you would drop that magazine, leave it on the ground, load another one, and keep going. They'll get you more magazines when you're out of the firefight. Ask anyone who's been in the military. There is a constant round robin of people losing magazines and trying to find the magazines they've lost. You will lose magazines over time. Those two reasons, or that one reason, the magazine, its unreliability and its inherent expendability, means that over time, at the end of the world as we know it, eventually you're gonna run out of magazines. And instead of having a state-of-the-art, high-speed, low-drag killing machine, you're gonna have a really inconvenient single-shot pistol. There's a few other reasons why semi-automatics aren't as preferable as a semi-automatic rifle. In all parts of the world, there's a semi-automatic rifle that's dominant. In the West, in America, it's the AR-15. In other parts of the world, it's the AK-47. There will always be ammunition and magazines available for those rifles. We don't have that same standard uniformity of pistols, of calibers, of types, of magazines. There's a lot of certain types out there. There's a lot of Glocks, but not even all the Glocks use the same magazines. There's a lot of Rugers, same thing, they don't all use the same magazines. Smith & Wesson, SIGs, High Point, you name them. There's a lot of them out there, but they're not ubiquitous the way the AR-15 is here and say the AK-47 is in Russia or some of the other places. Also, Those pistols are all kind of spread out over a couple different calibers. 40 Smith & Wesson, 9mm, 45 ACP. Those are the three big ones. You see a few others, maybe a little bit of 380 here and there. So you lose that advantage that you have with the AR or the AK of having almost a nearly endless supply of ammo and magazines, so that it's not as easy to replace. For all those reasons, I say the revolver is the better choice for a sidearm for the end of the world as we know it. And this goes into another issue, and I'm going to make all the steroid abusing, tight t-shirt, bald-headed, bearded guys with the flaming skull tattoos angry at me again. But in the end of the world, if you know it, your life is not going to be this never-ending cycle of exciting firefights and tactical patrols. Your life is going to be a never-ending series of back-breaking labors. You're going to be like the wall builders in the Old Testament who had to work with their sword in one hand and their trowel in the other as they tried to rebuild Jerusalem. Your weapon is going to come out of your holster to get cleaned most of the time. You're not going to be running around with a giant tactical pistol with lasers and flashlights and EOTechs and red dot scopes hanging off of it. You're going to have a very simple weapon hanging off your side that you need for fighting bad guys, shooting snakes, killing animals, coyotes, that sort of stuff. It's a tool. It's much more of a tool than a rifle. If you're going to be in a tactical situation, you're not picking a pistol anyway. Pistols are hard to use. They're hard to be accurate with. They have limited lethality, limited power. If you have the choice to pick something for your tactical situation, you're going with a rifle, maybe a carbine, shotgun. You're not picking up that pistol, not if you know what you're doing. Even if you know what you're doing with a pistol, you're still going to be better off with a rifle. They're just much easier to train with, and they're much more effective. So all of those reasons, I say a revolver is the way to go for the end of the world. That's my opinion. I've got a lot of opinions. They're not all worth very much, but I'd love to hear what you think.